Um, but we are talking this morning about vision and how important it is to have a really, really, really clear vision and to understand exactly where it is that you want to go, which is so important. But how many of us really, really, really understand that, how important that is, right? And so I'm going to share with you this morning just some thoughts and some things that I've read that have really helped me to understand really how important vision is. And I think that James Allen really talks about this in his book As a Man Thinketh, and he says, last week we talked about purpose, right? And he says, until thought is linked with purpose, there is no intelligent accomplishment. And so last week we talked about purpose. And so how do you bring your purpose to life? Like, how do you fulfill all the things that you want in your life? And one of the biggest challenges that happens is we allow our thought to take over, and we allow negative thoughts, negative people, and things into our life that, without intentionality and without a really clear vision, can be difficult because we allow these thoughts to sort of take over and really run our life, right? And so we are on automatic pilot, and we allow these thoughts to take over and then steer us away from the things that we actually want. And so today we're going to talk about, a vision statement, and really, like, what is a vision statement and why a vision statement? So last week we talked about having a purpose statement, and that's really to define the things that, if you were going to look at your life at the end of your life, what would you have really wanted to achieve? And most of the times it's not just material things. It could be, a dream come to life, but why? Right? That was the big question. Why do we want that? And many of us may have a goal, like you want to feed the hungry, or you want to help the poor, or you want to, you may want to do certain things that are going to make a difference in the lives of others, right? And so it was all about creating that purpose statement. And this week, we talk about how you're going to bring that purpose to life and how you're going to do that every day, right? So how are you going to bring that purpose to life, and how are you going to do that every day? So today, hello. Hi.
Recording in progress.
Good morning. All right, so I'm going to go on speaker mode, and I'm just gonna really talk about today. We are talking about vision, and so last week we talked about purpose statement. This week we're talking about vision. So let's just talk about the difference between the two of them. So purpose is really about, if you were to go to the end of your life and you were to look and you were to say, I really want to accomplish this. And why do you want to accomplish it? Like, you can have all these accomplishments and get to the end and then just not feel fulfilled. So like, what is really going to drive you and fulfill you and allow you to kind of leave this earth knowing you had a legacy and you had a part in some way that was bigger than you? And usually with that, it's other people that are involved in that process, right? So there's other people that are involved in this process um, of of giving back, so usually it may be maybe you're helping the poor, maybe you're feeding people in some way through your accomplishments. I mean, it's all different things that we do that really drive us, right? And so that's what we talked about last week. We talked about really understanding and having a purpose statement. So like what do you stand for? And that's it. What do you stand for? And this is really gonna drive you. And so how are you now going to bring that forward? And it's really challenging sometimes to bring, this isn't about our goals yet. Next week, we're going to talk about goals, but this is just really having a very clear idea, a very clear vision about where it is that you want to go. That means that you're waking up every day with a definite direction and you're saying, this is exactly what I want. Now, we can change this vision statement, right? This vision statement doesn't always have to be exactly this. It's kind of like if you were to think about a sculptor sort of carving out clay, and you're sculpting your life. So it's not always going to be sculpted exactly the same way. It's going to change. Just like your purpose, the same thing. Your purpose in your awareness 10 years ago is going to be different than your purpose maybe now. And so all of this is changing. And it's important that we talked about this last week, it's important that we allow these changes to take place. It's like, you're morphing into a new person. That's what's happening, is you're morphing into a new person. And so I'm just going to turn my screen on to this PowerPoint in 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. And so when you think about what it is that you want, James Allen says, until thought is linked with purpose, there is no intelligent accomplishment. That means that everything that we go to do must understand what the purpose is behind it. And just being very intentional about each time we go into something. And this is anything. This is going into a project. This is going into a meeting. This is going into, how you're going to cultivate your friends. I mean, it goes into everything. And everything should be aligned with your purpose. So even your business, how is that aligned with your purpose, right? And so what we tend to do is our thoughts tend to drift, and we could be on automatic pilot. They say that we are on automatic pilot 98% of the time. So 98% of the time we're on automatic pilot. So that means that we're not controlling our thoughts. So it's really important to understand who and why. I say who and why you are, way more important than how you are and how you're going to get there. It's really, being grounded in who you are and why you are. And so, what is your vision? Who are you becoming? And if you were going to think that you have this ability to kind of sculpt your world and really kind of take a deep dive in, regardless of where you are in your life, regardless of what age you are, this is about you taking control and you understanding that you have dominion over all things, that you are totally causative. You are 100% capable and responsible for everything that happens to you. And And so knowing this is about being super intentional about how you're going to craft that, right? How are you going to craft that? And so the biggest question is, what is your desire? Right? So you have your purpose statement, you understand who you are. And then, and if you weren't on the call last week, you can always go back and listen to the recording that we did. But the next is, what is your desire? So what is that burning desire, in the fire in your belly, that you are going to go after regardless of any other obstacle, right? And so I want you to take a minute just to write that down. So what is your desire? And then this is a quote from James Allen. It says, when one is truly ready for a thing, it puts in its appearance. And this is why vision is so important. Because when we don't really understand what we want, or we don't have a very, very clear idea about what we want, then what happens is we don't attract that into our lives. And I always think about it as like a metaphor, like if you took a seed, right? If you took a little seedling and you planted it in the ground, and then you watch these little seedlings, they take a very long time. I actually was just visiting my niece in Maine, and she is farming her own, all her own vegetables and meats and everything. And so I was there. I was only there for 2 days, but I was watching her take these little seeds from, this beginning stages, and then start to grow these plants. And first she had to start off with these tiny little squares of soil, like real small, like, really tiny, less than an inch in diameter, right? And she put the seed in, and then she's watching it grow. And then as it grows, now she has to actually create larger squares, and she has to change the environment, right? So it's once a smaller seed, she has to change the environment, create a larger square, and so that the seed now can grow into a larger environment. As it starts to grow and becomes larger, then she takes it out and she plants it into the garden, right? So there's actual stages that she has to go through before she can even get it into this large environment. And I really started to think about this, and everything that she's doing takes forever when you're farming. It's like she planted mushrooms, they take 12 months. She's making apple trees. It takes 5 to 7 years to see one apple from an infant apple tree. So I want you to think about this, because this is how our dreams work. You don't just plant a seed and then all of a sudden it happens. There's a law that happens, and it's called the law of gender. And the law of gender means that there is an incubation period, right? It means that things don't just happen overnight. Once those things are planted, all kinds of things need to happen. They need to be watered. They need sunlight. They need all of these environmental conditions. Like I just said, she started off with like these tiny squares. Now she's moving them into larger squares. Once they get into a larger square, then she could actually plant them in the garden. This takes weeks, if not a couple months, before she could even put them in the garden. So when you think about your dream, and you think about your purpose, and you think about your vision, it isn't going to happen. You're not going to see the end of the apple tree. You're not going to see the tomatoes on the plant yet. You're right now, if you're not seeing the fruit, then there's things that need to be done in order to cultivate that, in order to sculpt it, in order to, and one major thing is really making sure that your mind is able to have fresh plants and you're pruning your garden of weeds, right? And that means that you're really taking out any negative thoughts, any thoughts or people for that matter, any thoughts or people or things in your environment that are not going to allow you to prosper. And so, what does that, I don't know what that looks like for you, but I know for me, I had to cultivate and I had to pull those weeds. I had to take people out in my life that were actually not contributing to my dreams, that were not really helping me feel really good about what I was doing. They were living in their own fear, and that fear was coming on to me, right? And so right now, what I want you to do is I want you to think about your vision statement. And we're going to do this for a few minutes. You're going to write this out. And if you watch this video later, I still want you to really play along and do this. And so your vision statement's a detailed description. It's you living in your full achievement of life, in your present tense, right? And so this is you if your dream were to come to full life right now. So I want you to think about if you were living out the very thing that you want in your life, that one desire, meeting your future self at this very moment. The first thought I want you to think about is, how does it feel? How does it feel? Does it feel exciting? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel gratitude? Do you feel secure? Do you feel whatever it is it a financial thing that you're going after? Perhaps maybe it is maybe your purpose is to feed the hungry. I don't know. Maybe it's whatever that is. If you were able to fully live that out and you were able to have all the finances that you needed to do that, whatever it is that you needed to do, how would you feel? Okay, so I want you to think about that. Write that word down. This feels, I feel fulfilled. Or, it could be that because you have a financial stability and, a financial future, you feel very secure and safe, right? So this is where you're really elaborating more on what did you accomplish, right? So not what do you want to accomplish, because remember, this is you have lived full out. And you're going to read this every morning, every single morning you wake up and every evening before you go to bed. And what I want you to think about is writing it in as I am. That's how you're going to start it. I am. And it could be, I am living my best life. I am living my best life by conquering or I'm living my best life by taking fearless steps, right? By taking fearless steps. And these are just things that I'm thinking. I like to think about as I'm writing it, I want to think about if I can live my full self without any boundaries or without anything getting in the way, without one limiting belief, because that's what kind of holds us back is our own self, right? So if you didn't have any limiting belief, if you were never comparing yourself to somebody else, you never had to worry about what anyone else thinks, And you can just be 100% you, living completely full out, completely full out. What would that look like? What would that look like? All right, so you're living 100% full out. And what would that look like? Now, as your this is definitely not something that you're going to do all today. You're not going to do the whole thing today, but it's good to start it. And then what I want you to think about is, I want you to think that you are a sculptor of your life. And the idea of this vision statement, because next week we're getting into goals. And so it's really great to be able to work on it this week. And you're really going to think about how is my vision, not take that back. It's not about how your vision is going to come to life, because believe it or not, you never have to worry about the how. We try to figure that out, but I opened a salon 22 years ago, and I had no idea how. I just opened the doors and I figured it out. And so I truly believe that no matter what it is, if you have a definite desire and you understand what it is and you have a very clear vision to where you want to go, you're going to figure out how. So this isn't about how you're going to do it. This is just thinking about, if I lived 100% full out, without any restrictions, without any limiting beliefs, without any comparison to anyone else, what would this look like? Right? What would this look like? And, in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, he talks about their 6 basic fears. And he talks about the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of loss of a loved one, the fear of old age, and the fear of death. Those 6 being the biggest fears that we come up against. So what I want you to do is, I want you to think, if those fears didn't exist, none of them, what would your life look like? So I'm going to stop the I'm going to just stop the recording.